Now that we've introduced the concept of cast shadows, we're going to talk about why they're so useful and important. And in order to do so, we need to talk about the difference between implicit information and explicit information in the context of drawing. So here we have two renditions of basically the same kind of scaly texture. One of them, this one, is drawn explicitly, and by that I mean every single scale is drawn specifically with a full outline, and you have clear ideas of where that scale begins and ends. This one, on the other hand, is implicit. The scales themselves are not drawn. What's being drawn are the shadows that they cast and the impact that they have on their surroundings. It's a lot like when you're hunting an animal, and maybe you haven't seen this animal, but you've seen signs that it is present. So there's the tracks, the scat that it might leave, tufts of fur that it might rub off on branches and bushes. I don't hunt. I don't actually know what any of that's about, but I know that things can leave signs that suggest things about what they are without you ever actually having to see them. And that's extremely useful here. The reason it's useful is because when you're drawing things explicitly, you've basically made a contract with the viewer. You've made a contract saying that I'm going to draw everything that is present on this object, and anything I do not draw is not there. So if we were to take scales out of this, which layer is it? So if we were to take, I don't know, erase a whole scale from this, that scale is now gone because every single thing that we have drawn is what's present and nothing else is there. We've made that agreement with the viewer. Now, on this side, it's a little different. We're basically telling the viewer that, there's a lot here, and we're drawing some of it, and we're drawing it in different ways. We may change how we choose to actually convey its presence, but that doesn't change the fact that it's there. So as you can see here, on the left side, the detail is a lot more dense. So everything here is, like on this side, it's defined, it's got very deep shadows, but everything is kind of outlined. Although they're not outlines, they are shadows, there's a difference. But then as you move to this side, those shadows are starting to recede. And all of a sudden, we're just getting the barest of lines. So there's very little line work on this side, but it still reads as having the same number of scales as there were on this side. This is critical because we don't necessarily want to be caught in a situation where we have to fully detail out every little scale on this object. If we do that, we run into situations where we end up with an extremely busy, a visually noisy image with competing focal points, because with all of this contrasting dark and light areas, the viewer's eye is drawn to those things. So if it's all over the place, the eye doesn't know where to go, it gets very stressed out, and it's very unpleasant. If you can control where those areas of dense detail are, then you can accomplish a sort of, purely designed and intentional focal areas, and then other areas that are left sparse or even blank where the eye can rest. And in doing so, you don't change what you're communicating to the viewer. It's still got scales all over it, but you don't necessarily draw all of them. So the key here is that we're able to transition from dense to sparse because it's got open doors. These outlines are not closed off, and the eye can flow very smoothly from one to the other. Whereas here, it's all completely closed off. You are stuck to a single level of density, and that lack of flexibility can really harm your drawing. So in essence, this is one of the main things that we focus on when we're actually adding texture to a drawing, because we want to have full control over what we draw, where we draw it, and exactly what it's communicating to the viewer.